Welcome to our subgroup presentation focused on Edu-Curation and reverse curation. To us, these terms speak to a curatorial method that is inclusive of the curator, artists, and visitors as participators. The approach is visitor-oriented and requires equal collaboration to be successful. This type of curation is a shift from the traditional top-down approach to a circular bottom-up process. To situate our sub-presentation within our main group methodology, our strategic proposal forms part of Part 4, Ideation. Our ideation process is further broken down into 5 parts. Part 1 focuses on the theoretical framework. The process began with formulating our problem statement, identifying nodes of focus, situating them within the larger thematic concern, and the synthesis of theoretical frameworks. The Javid UP is visited by a diverse group of individuals with unique perspectives and backgrounds. While the artwork exhibited within the Javid UP has made great progress in showcasing the inclusivity, diverse cultures, and underrepresented voices, there is still a disconnect between the visitor experience and the artworks exhibited. In order to bridge the gap between the two aspects, there needs to be a focus on improving methodologies to facilitate meaningful cultural and knowledge exchanges, critical dialogue, and interactive experiences during the information exchange process. From our previous mapping synthesis, we identified 3 key nodes to guide our strategic development. The first is interior spaces. This includes the interior gallery space within the walls of the Javid UP. The second is the transitional spaces. This includes the immediate exterior space outside the Javid UP within its boundary. The last is urban spaces. This includes the greater public areas surrounding the Javid UP identified during our mapping process. Together, our 3 nodes situate within our thematic concern, summarizing the connection points between the key aspects identified for the scope of our project within our problem statement. A few additional key terms important to our project are knowledge exchange, focusing on creating cultural exchange through different perspectives and epistemic diversity. Collaboration, as working together in a closed process to create the exhibition. And lastly, co-creation, which expands the idea of collaboration by promoting outside or disenfranchised voices in the decision-making. As identified in our problem statement, to successfully create visitor-centered exhibitions where collaboration and co-creation are the central elements, we need to focus on ways to improve our visitor experience.
To help identify successful methods that engage visitors as active participants, the next step we undertook was a literature review. We consulted the publication called Visitor-Centered Exhibitions and Edu-Curation in Art Museums, edited by Pat Villeneuve and Anne Rosen-Love. This is a collection of studies which explores the concept of edu-curation and its impact on visitor interaction. The first theory we consulted from the publication was Parsons' level of aesthetic development. This articulation shows how various people respond to artwork. Level 1, favoritism, has a strong attraction to color or subject matter. Level 2, beauty and realism, prioritizes subject matter that is beautiful and/or representational. Level 3, expression, recognizes that artwork evokes feelings. Level 4, style and form, sees artwork as part of an art world context. And finally, Level 5, autonomy, analyzes the artwork from various perspectives. Parsons theorizes that artworks are curated at a level 4 and 5, while the visitor's current level of response is between a level 2 and 3. This is further supported by situating the current Javid UP archetypes into the relevant level. We can see that curatorial methods need to be improved to accommodate a larger group of visitors' intellectual levels. Next, we identified 3 relevant theories from Villeneuve and Rosen-Love's publication to understand how best to implement edu-curational methods. The first is Steffen's feminist theories, which has been adapted to edu-curation. The theory states that when planning an exhibition, the edu-curator and curatorial team need to keep the following in mind: be inclusive and pluralistic, include voices of the disenfranchised, enhance organizational culture, advance appropriate methodologies, and bring about social and systemic change. The second theory we identified in the literature review was the IPOP theory. The IPOP theory is derived from an experiment based on the theory of preferences. This theory outlines 4 major dimensions of experience: the conceptual as the idea, the emotional as people, the aesthetic as object, and the pragmatic as the physical. The 4 dimensions outline the unconscious preferences people have when engaging with the world and the spaces therein. The final theory we consulted is the curator-educator teamwork principles. This set of principles form a guide for the edu-curator by outlining 4 key ideas. These principles are celebrating multiple perspectives, the importance of personal passions, how best to encourage self-awareness and self-discovery, and lastly, how to develop the connection between the artwork and the viewer through relevance. By considering the theories in relation to each other, we were able to identify specific areas for improvement and how they link the 3 theories to each other. This diagram forms part of the process of moving away from a static gallery through reverse and edu-curation. Next, we identified the key informants of the theories which follow similar principles and themes to ensure we advance the strongest concepts. These key informants were grouped into 3 categories. Group 1 focuses on enhancing diverse backgrounds, beliefs, values through organizational culture, people as a group, and encouraging self-awareness and self-discovery. Group 2 stresses the need for appropriate methodologies in the physical exhibitions to celebrate personal passions. Finally, Group 3 emphasizes the importance of inclusivity of diverse perspectives and intellects and how that manifests into objects which help the visitor to find relevance. Through the theoretical framework and the overlap between the 3 theories mentioned, our strategy was to develop a series of questions. These questions can be used as a guide for the curatorial team to ensure that any planned exhibitions and events will be successfully implemented with edu-curation and reverse curational approaches. At an overview, the questions cover various components of edu-curational practices. These include diversity, relevance, self-reflection and discovery, personal passions, knowledge and cultural exchange, and inclusivity. Our questions can be seen as a strategy checklist for the curatorial team to ensure exhibitions and events promote edu-curational practices. Through the rest of the presentation, we will show the process of our question iterations and how they improved to formulate our final questions as a strategy for the curatorial team.
Moving on to Part 2, Reflections. Through a critical analysis of interior, transitional and urban spaces, we were able to test the first iteration of the question set. For the sake of this exercise, we used our question set as a tool to analyze Javed UP and the urban city through an edu-curational lens, starting with an analysis of the interior exhibition spaces at the Javed UP. To recap, the 5 exhibitions currently on display at the Javed UP are as follows: Another Roadmap African Cluster, the Permanent South 32 Collection, Oscar Murillo's Frequencies, the Permanent Anglo-Gold Ashanti Gold of Africa Collection, and the Collective Study Classrooms, which permanently house the Javed Family Collection. Starting off with the ground floor gallery. The first exhibition we analysed is Iraq. This is a collaboration between the African Scholars of Artistic and Cultural Education. The exhibit highlights a collection of questions and provocations in art education. After applying our set of questions to the exhibition, it fell short specifically with question 2. The South 32 collection showcases intricately made sculptures to look like mining tools that would be used by the South 32 company. After applying our set of questions to the exhibition, we noticed gaps in all of the questions. Now we look at the galleries on the first floor. The main first floor gallery currently houses Oscar Murillo's Frequencies. This is a collection of canvases that were left on school desks where children were allowed to draw freely. After applying our set of questions to the exhibition, we noticed gaps mainly with question 2 and 3. The next exhibition is the Gold Anglo-Ashanti Barber Mueller Gold of Africa collection. This is an extensive collection of valuable precious, metal jewellery and artifacts uncovered at the Mapungubwe mountain. After applying our set of questions to the exhibition, we noticed the gaps with question 3, 4, 5 and 6. Finally, the Collective Study Classroom Javed Family Collection. This is a reverse curatorial process that is organized in an open classroom or collective study, featuring Sam Natalewa's lithograph titled Glimpses of 50s and 60s, 2002 to 2003, and Cecile Scottner's Last Supper. After applying our set of questions to the exhibition, we noticed gaps mainly with question 3, 4, 5, and 6. We then summarized the analysis into a table to highlight the most common areas that exhibitions fell short.
Next, we analysed the transitional space outside of Jabbit UP that sits within the boundary wall. The exterior space is made out of the parking lot and the undercover stage. Because the fence condition restricts access to the exterior space of Jabbit UP, it is mainly activated when there is a specific event held on the stage. To successfully analyze this space, we applied our set of questions to a general scenario of an event being held. The space fell short with question 2, 4, 5, and 6. Lastly, we looked at the urban nodes. We identified key nodes for potential intervention for analyzing a larger group mapping of the urban spaces surrounding Jabbit UP. These nodes include the Ola Lawn at the University of Pretoria, the Hazel Food CNC Market, and Loftus Shopping Centre. These nodes were selected due to their high population, which will have better potential for more cultural and knowledge exchange opportunities. Through our analysis of the interior, transitional, and urban nodes, we found that the strategy questions could be refined for better clarity in the phasing, most notably question 2, 3, 4, and 6. Here, we can see the refinement of question 2 and 3, as well as the refinement of question 4 and 6. This refinement led to our second iteration of strategy questions.
Our second set of questions were tested through exploration. This is done through an analysis of existing precedents with an educational lens. The first one is the Cradle of Humankind, situated just outside Johannesburg. This is a paleoanthropological site which houses the largest concentration of human ancestral remains. After applying our questions, we found that it fell short with regard to question 3, 4, and 6. The application of our questions is further supported by identifying key pros and cons of the Cradle of Humankind. While the spaces make use of accessible interfaces, the exhibitions are sometimes overstimulating and don't leave room for personal reflections. Relevant events are hosted by the transitional spaces such as stargazing and fireside chat. However, these spaces have limited and controlled access due to the fence condition. This can be related back to our areas of improvement. The areas that need the most improvement are diversity and accessibility. Next, we looked at the Circa Art Gallery on Keys Avenue in Rosebank, Johannesburg. The art gallery prompts users to spend time with the art and develop a connection through mixed curatorial methods. After applying our questions, we found that it fell short with regard to question 2 and 4. The gallery has an open and accessible street front. This is inviting and activates the transitional space. The transitional space further promotes cultural exchange between different audiences through the connection to the Everard Reed Gallery across the road and the inclusion of restaurants and pop-up events along the pavement. Where the gallery lacks is through interactive interfaces within the gallery and a lack of co-creation processes inside the gallery, which allows visitors to become active participants of the exhibition. To situate the Circa Gallery on the Areas for Improvement diagram, the interior space lacks in collaborative processes and interactivity. Lastly, we looked at the Baz Art Festival. Baz Art takes over public spaces, enabling artists to transform their cities, leaving behind a masterpiece, coupled with a QR code for passers-by to access the meaning, inspiration, and conceptual approach of the artist. After applying our questions, we found that it fell short mainly with question 4. While the art festival is accessible to a diverse audience and promotes public discussion and interaction, if not carefully executed with clear interfaces, there is a risk of vandalism. This limits the extent to which audiences can engage with the artwork and add their own perspectives. The planning process is a co-creative process through the curatorial team and potential artists, which promotes culturally relevant topics and themes. However, this type of event is exclusionary to some extent, as it only happens on a singular day once a year. Therefore, the Baz Art Festival can be improved through inclusivity and gallery engagement. Through the precedent exploration, our second iteration of strategy questions were adequately phrased and did not need changing.
Next, we looked at possible interventions that could be generated using the strategy questions. This is done through scenario-based proposals. The first scenario proposal could be located within the interior spaces of the Javid UP. The Javid UP will host a series of workshops throughout the year wherein either an international or local artists who are leaders in their field will host the educational class primarily focused on the artistic mediums and techniques unique to their workflow. These workshops will enable participants to produce carefully informed pieces in relation to the ongoing exhibitions on display at the Javid UP. Together with the curatorial team, the class will curate the pieces in the gallery spaces for public viewing and reflection. Scenario 1. A local practitioner who specializes in acrylic paint teaches a class on various techniques that can be used within the medium. The participants can display their work in the gallery space with detailed descriptions of the inspirations, meanings behind the work. The class will also display a reflective piece on their journey throughout the workshop and the art medium taught. Artists can also leave their details behind to expand their following and continue the cultural and knowledge exchange between the users beyond the walls of the Javid UP. After applying our questions to the proposal, it fell short in regards to question 1. The Javid UP can introduce a traveling workshop or an online workshop which allows accessibility to people of diverse cultures and backgrounds. For example, the gallery can visit schools, universities, or libraries. This will provide a wider scope of engagement and possibilities.
Next will be the transitional space proposal. The Javid UP will host an annual event that will activate the parking space, stage, and external architecture. Artisans will be invited to curate a singular parking bay as well as host interactive workshops on the stage facility promoting cultural and knowledge exchange. After applying our questions to the proposal, it fell short in regards to question 2. A series of 5 types of modular blocks will be provided by the Javid UP for artisans to curate their bays, as well as several reflective spaces for the participants. The overall proposal did not facilitate participants to find relevance beyond the tactile works. A possible suggestion for this problem would be to introduce a new modular component covered in chalk paint which allows artists to write their personal background information and motivation for their works in their exhibition. This new modular block will form an integral part of the artisan's individual creation and successfully allow for participants to find relevance beyond the work.
Our next proposal is in the urban landscape. Our proposal is a semi-permanent structure that can be placed into the previously identified urban nodes. The structures will act as a rentable storage and exhibition space to promote knowledge exchange. Viewers and artists can engage in diverse, layered discussions about the works, their meanings, the processes involved, and techniques specific to the medium. After applying our questions to the proposal, it fell short in regards to question 4. As a solution and an improvement on the proposal, a perspex box can be added, which will encourage further knowledge exchange between the artist and the participators, as well as between the participators themselves, by applying a give-and-take approach. After a rigorous process of analysis and iteration, this is the set of questions we have developed as a guide for a curatorial team to use for future exhibitions. Question 1. Is the current state of curation accessible to people of diverse cultures and backgrounds? Question 2. Does the current state of the curation allow for the user to aptly situate themselves within the aspects of the work and find personal relevance in the key themes, ideas, and philosophies? Question 3. How has the curatorial method executed successfully driven visitor discussion and interaction, sufficiently facilitating group and self-reflection and discovery? Question 4. Has there been sufficient means provided for the users to incorporate their ideas, passions, and beliefs within the curated space? Question 5. Has there been provision made to curate multiple views and perspectives within the exhibition space in order to promote various means of knowledge and cultural exchange? Question 6. Is the overall curation successful in its intentional inclusion of organizational culture, art mediums, and elements to provide an immersive and intellectual inclusive experience? Our strategy to create a guideline and set of questions to inform curatorial practices within the Javet UP and beyond its walls is not a linear process with a singular end. This circular effort can be adapted and adjusted as required to address evolving issues. Through our strategy development, we have been able to leverage co-creative processes and art-based inquiries to subvert conventional exhibition practices. This was done to enhance knowledge exchange through interactive exhibitions within and beyond the gallery space, and by promoting collaboration and co-creation among diverse cultures, voices, and backgrounds to enrich the visitor experience.